Hello everyone, I am back. It's been 2 years and, well, I'm back. I'm just gonna jump straight into the topic of this video. Today, I'm going to be reading 3 really bad manhwas / webcomics. I've been wanting to do this video for a while. It's just the problem with making a video like this is that manhwas are a really difficult thing to master, and it takes a lot of time. Not only that, but just passion to do it. So for someone who's never made a manhwa before, to sit down in front of a video camera and trash these manhwas is kind of in bad faith, but that's not what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to try to keep it as civil as possible. You can dislike a manhwa as much as you like. This is a free country, and I'm in America. So today I'm going to be reading and reviewing the top 3 worst reviewed manhwas that I could find. Here was my plan. On various social platforms, I would search the topic worst manhwa ever. I would search those keywords, and whichever manhwa I see presented first, I'm going to be reading and reviewing. The plan was to find more than one because there isn't just one bad manhwa, there is a ton out there. So I wanted to go out of my way to find at least 3. I feel like 3 is a good starting point. The first place I looked, of course, was webtoon.com. But unfortunately, there's no option to search for the lowest rated manhwa at all. If you go to where to search and you put like highest rated manhwa, it's not like you can scroll down and try to find the lowest rated manhwa, because even on that specific list that you're searching on, it's still gonna be one of the highest rated manhwas or webcomics. So I scrapped that idea and went straight to Google, which of course brought me to Reddit. So on Reddit, what I could find, there was a post asking what is the worst rated manhwa anyone has ever read, and someone commented was a user that posted 2 years ago. They suggested this manhwa, which goes by My Civil Servant Life Reborn in a New World. They said that this was the worst manhwa they've ever read. And since that comment had the most upvotes, I put it on my list. The second comment replying under that comment was someone saying that the main character was brain dead, but the story was still fun to read. That one had 104 upvotes. So we had my first webcomic. The next platform I searched on was TikTok. And as you know, TikTok is known for popularizing a lot of manhwas. So I thought this would be easy because not only that, TikTok is a platform in which a lot of people are very opinionated. I found a video by this user. I just spent like 30 minutes trying to find the specific comment, but I can't. And I should have screenshot it when I saw it, but now I can't even find the TikTok at all. Bear with me. And this manhwa was the first suggestion to pop up. A webcomic called Sham Tycoon. Not many people were defending the claim that Sham Tycoon wasn't a bad webcomic, so this was going as my second read. The next platform I wanted to dive in was YouTube. YouTube is also very opinionated. Luckily, I found a video by the name of this user, which is called Manga Barista. They made a 10-minute video discussing why they don't like a certain manhwa. The manhwa was called, bear with me, The Tidal Night King Who Returned with a God. They said that this was the worst manhwa they have ever read. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you what he says, and then I'm going to tell you what I think, and if I agree with him or if I disagree with him, and if I have my own input to give. And yeah, let's get started.
If you touch your mouse, we will not be able to do anything with the server. Why are you touching it?
Story number 1, My Civil Servant Life Reborn in a New World. This manhwa has hundreds of chapters, and obviously I can't read that much in a short amount of time. The plan is I read you the synopsis first, tell you how long I read the story, and explain why I just did not like it, or did like it. My Civil Servant Life Reborn in a New World is on Tapas, and it has 85 official episodes and was released in 2019. I'm gonna be reading it from my laptop. So Dan made a promise to his mother on her deathbed that he would find a respectable job, and he almost kept that promise until a truck sent him into a new world. Den is reborn as one of the most powerful magic users and is next in line to be chief of the fearsome Crow tribe. But Den intends to keep his promise and runs off to the capital with a cast of colorful roommates, a family hunting him down, and a shadowy plot to overthrow the empire. Can Den actually achieve his simple life goal? So, up until episode 5, this story is free. The rest of the 80 chapters are to purchase. It's an isekai concept, which means the main character gets into an accident and then suddenly jumps into a new world where he's granted magical powers and magical beasts to defeat. So as I started to read this manhwa, I noticed that a lot of it was comedy. A lot of reincarnation manhwas will have a secondary genre, which is comedy or horror or psychological. Sometimes it works and sometimes it does not work. And I think, in my opinion, in this story, it does work. Right off the bat, the manhwa had very standard art for a reincarnation manhwa. Typically, for manhwas with a lot of fantasy in it, will have the art style would be really in your face. Pah! You know what I mean? Like, boom! The character had your basic brown hair, frail, average look to him. A lot of manhwas will do this because the main characters usually have to be a self-insert type of character, something that you can relate to, so they have to make the main character really basic. The story portrays the main character, Den, to be the strongest amongst his family. In fact, his father in the very first chapter decides he wants to be seen as the next chief despite his 2 older brothers being proven to be more powerful than him. His father wants him to be the chief, but Den doesn't want to. When the father was asked why he chooses Den to be the next chief to take his place, he says that he's just kind of really strong, to be honest. After he announces that his son needs to be the next chief, Den runs away, thus starting a search party for him, and Den just continues to run away because he does not want to be the next chief after his father. My honest opinion, if you're writing a manhwa where the main character barely shows up in the first chapter and is incredibly strong to begin with, it's like I finished reading the entire story already. Also, this is just a random side note. In the middle of chapter 2, his hair changes color. It shows to be dark blue, and you could say this is the lighting, but I just found it odd because he kind of looks like an entirely different character to begin with. Anyway, throughout reading this, I felt like I had nothing relatable with the main character. Like, I get that his whole premise is that he's the strongest and that he's the rebel of the family and he wants to break the rules and run away. On top of that, we never really see Den struggle to get what he wants. It's like we don't get any of that. Den doesn't struggle. He just gets it because he's strong. If he wanted to teleport, he could because he has teleportation skills. If he wanted to make a sword from scratch, he could. He's being chased down by an entire village of skilled fighters just like him. He's not struggling to escape. He's, in fact, way faster, way more powerful, and way more clever than them. At one point, he ends up in another entirely different town, and he runs into a bunch of thieves. He's chased down by these thieves. He gets robbed by these thieves. But then a couple panels later, he gets all of his stuff back by flicking the thieves on their forehead. Another scene is that he ends up in jail. He's not even in there for that long. He steals a fake ID from his sister, who just so happens to be a higher up figure in the universe, where the cops recognize her title. And the way he makes his fake ID is by magic. And thinking it's him, they apologize and let him go. Moments later, he attempts to buy food at a market because he's hungry. And when he goes to purchase the food from the stand, the amount he offers is too much. It has too much worth. So the person selling him the food begs him not to buy the food. He literally says, I will go bankrupt if you give me this hefty amount of money for this food because I don't have change to give you. Moments later, he ends up being ambushed by a bunch of guys, but with perfect timing, he is saved. He ends up being saved conveniently by a knight who conveniently trusts him enough to pay for a lavish dinner. Oh, we're not done yet. When he asks Den if he has anywhere to sleep tonight, and when Den says no, he offers Den a room to sleep in. My point in mentioning all of this, we never see Den struggle with anything. You can make the argument that this story has 80 chapters. I read a fraction of that. Something could have happened later on, but I just didn't get to read it. The most important part of your story is the first couple chapters. How can Den grow if he's already so perfect? I know it's kind of counterintuitive to say that you want your main character to suffer, but I've never wanted to see a main character suffer before until I saw Den. Instead of Den having, magic powers to pull out a fake ID from stealing it from his sister, maybe the jail can have a shield on it where you can't use magical powers, something to hinder the main character from getting what he wants. Even when he's scavenging for items and he's going on these little escapades, he finds all of the items he needs and we don't even see it. Let me explain. In the very first day in the village, he's granted a warm, safe shelter and tons of free food, along with a knight to practically guard him. On the next day, he says that he's going to go scavenge for items, but they don't even show him struggling to get any of these items. We just know he went out to get these items and then comes back with them. And these are pretty important items too. All he says he found is that he found the imperial capital map, information about imperial forces and nobles, and the imperial capital grimoires, and money. Everything was handed to Den in a silver platter with no hardship or struggle. On top of that, his family isn't able to locate his whereabouts. Guess why? He can conceal his location using magical powers. In chapter 7, going into 9, Den has his 2 companions reserve first-class train tickets to deport to the imperial capital. In the middle of it, the train is ambushed by a gang of goblins. We're going to see Den struggle at least a little bit, right? No, because in a couple panels, Den uses his magical powers to kill them all. And then they're suddenly at the imperial capital. I was done with this story by chapter 9. This story has a lot of potential. It's just that if you're reading this not for the plot, then you might enjoy this story. Moving on to the second webcomic. Buckle in because this one...
I've got a favor to ask.
What is it?
I need to kiss you.
Next manhwa is Sham Tycoon. This was released on January 9th, 2024 on -toon.com. I've never heard of this website before. It has 258 chapters. Here's the synopsis. Caroline Evans accidentally married a stranger after discovering her fiancé had betrayed her. Unexpectedly, her new husband is the richest person today and is also the uncle of Caroline's lover. Going into this, I was quite confused because not only was the art style very different from what I was used to reading, which is not a problem. I'm open to any art style. If someone has a certain type of art style they like to do for their webcomics, by all means. It's not a negative thing, of course, but this art style in particular looked like Episode, which is an app. And I'll show you a side-by-side comparison between these two. It didn't look real. The story starts off with our main character, Sophia Parker. Wait, Sophia. Do you remember when I said the name? Caroline Evans accidentally married a stranger after discovering her fiancé had betrayed her. Who's Sophia? Where is Caroline? Where is Caroline Evans? The description of this manhwa on the official website says Caroline Evans. Once you start to read the manhwa, it says Sophia Parker. Where is Caroline? Where is Caroline? Who is Caroline? Where did Caroline end up? What's going on? Okay, maybe Caroline shows up later. Maybe it's Sophia's sister. No, Sophia's sister is named Jessica Parker. There is no Caroline Evans. A character by the name of Michael Thompson, who Sophia was in love with, began to fall for her sister, Jessica. He's incredibly rich. Incredibly rich. He fell out of love with Sophia and fell in love with her sister, Jessica. Jessica and Michael start dating. I don't have any siblings, but if my sister started dating my ex, who I'm still in love with, I would... Get this! Michael Thompson, who is our main character's ex, who's dating her sister, says that if you donate your kidney to Jessica, I'll marry you. The first chapter was just exposition on exposition. Here's this girl, this man is her ex, and he's threatening her, and he wants her to donate her kidney to her sister because her sister has a failing kidney, and if she does that, then he'll marry her. And then there's this guy who's suddenly somehow involved. Where is Caroline Evans? Who is Caroline Evans? This guy, who just so happens to be the main lead of this story, is also the main love interest of Caroline. No, sorry, Sophia Parker. His name is Lucas Thompson. Michael Thompson. Anyway, this Lucas Thompson, which is our main lead, remember that, proposes to Caroline, Sophia. He proposes that they get married for approximately 3 years, but the catch is they don't fall in love with each other. And also, he states that if either of them manage to find love outside of their contractual relationship, the marriage has to come to an end. So we get the gist, right? Rich, handsome man. I have to read from my notes so I can get everything. Rich, handsome guy rejects hot main girl for her sister, but then she meets his unknown family member who also happens to be super handsome and rich, and he proposes an idea that they form a fake relationship together, and then they accidentally fall in love in the end. That's literally what I wrote in my notes. Still, the question was bouncing around in my head. Where was Caroline Evans? I've been reading this story, and Caroline Evans doesn't show. Maybe if I continued reading, Caroline Evans would just show up. This was starting to become a true crime mystery. Me trying to find Caroline Evans. So within hours of Lucas Thompson proposing this idea that they get married for 3 years, and you know, what I just explained to you, they get married within a couple hours. It is possibly to, get back at this Michael Thompson guy. I would just take a little bit more precaution. If a random man, no matter how attractive, comes up to me and gives me this idea, I would call the cops. The whole reason why she gets married to Lucas, I didn't mention that. But the whole point of Sophia accepting this proposal to get married to this Lucas Thompson guy is that Michael doesn't coerce Sophia into donating her kidney to her sister. I still couldn't get used to the art style. In the back of my mind, I was just kind of, this isn't what I'm used to, but I'm never gonna really turn down a good story, even if the art style isn't my taste. So I kept reading, and things started to look odd. We'll get to that in a couple minutes. The more I read it, the more I hypothesized that this story was created by artificial intelligence, because when someone draws, you can tell that the strokes were made by a human. The strokes in this story did not look organic. It looked like someone put this in ChatGPT and just made a story out of it. Not only that, but Sophia was always seen wearing the same clothing. She was always seen wearing that red top. Why didn't she change her shirt? Why did she always dress the same? Was this a Nickelodeon show? Where was Caroline Evans? Who is Caroline Evans? Caroline Evans, I must avenge you, because we still don't know where you are, girl. Another thing that was off was that her clothes stay the same, but her face would change. Anyway, so back to the story. At one point, Sophia introduces Lucas Thompson to her parents, and they immediately reject the idea of them getting married entirely, which I understand. If I was a parent, I would reject the idea. Are you telling me that you just met this man today and you're getting married to him today? No, you are disowned. In fact, and I'm gonna read from my notes, her mother at one point said, "Your marriage to him, aka Michael, is to elevate our family, not for love." Which, even if a mother did feel this way, and they could feel this way, there's mothers out there who feel this way about their kids. They have these strong opinions about who they marry. I don't think any mother would actually say this. What's even more wild is that Sophia, in all of this mess, admits to her parents that Michael tried to coerce her to give up her kidney for her sister to marry him. And the mother's very logical response to that is, are you ready? Donating a kidney wouldn't harm you, and you'd save Jessica and become Michael's wife. It's a win-win and noble gesture. You're an adult now, Sophia. It's a reasonable exchange. Pardon? What? I'm going to punch her. Even if Sophia wanted to donate her kidney to her sister, that is all a very personal and sacrificial thing to do. Even if you want to give your sister your kidney, it is still something that you have to come to terms with, even if a mother is a terrible one. This doesn't make sense. Another thing that I found very uncanny about this webcomic is that all the characters were drawn very, very stiff, and that including their facial expressions. Like, even when Sophia was crying, Her eyes looked devoid of any emotion. I doubt that that was intentional on the artist's part, but I just wanted to point it out anyway. The only thing that would really change is the eyebrows. If a character was upset, they would look like this. And if a character was angry, they would look like this. And if a character was happy, it would look like this. Where was Caroline Evans? I'm still waiting on that. So after this unfortunate encounter with her parents, upon witnessing all of this, Lucas, by the way, Lucas was with her this whole time. Lucas met the parent. Lucas decides to drive Sophia out. They go to a seaside with a serene atmosphere for Sophia to take her mind off of all of this. Probably even to allow her to forget about all of her, misfortune thus far. No, because as soon as they get there, Lucas brings up Michael, the catalyst of all of this mess. So he asks her if she's ever decided to take revenge on Michael. One confusing dialogue made me scratch my head, and I'm gonna read it directly. Michael sounds vile. Don't you want him to suffer? Pardon? Sounds vile? You've never met him? Why the hell is this Lucas guy even marrying Sophia? Fake marrying. Who is he? If he doesn't know who Michael is and he doesn't have an idea of how much of a terrible person Michael is, why is he doing all of this? I mean, it would make sense. Oh yeah, Michael's a bad guy. I've had my bad experiences with him too. Let's take revenge on him. No. Another thing this manhwa did, they used the same exact panel 8 different times within the same chapter. Now, I am aware that traditional Korean manhwa utilizes this a lot for shortcut purposes because manhwa just takes a long time to do and drawing panels by panels is very difficult. So they pretty much copy and paste to a different section of the same chapter, but they make sort of alterations. In this one, she looks like she has collarbone length hair, but in this panel, her hair is down to her waist. In this panel, it clearly shows that her hair is down to her waist, but in this one, it only reaches her mid-back. The more I look at these characters, the more I'm like, tell me this guy's hand doesn't look like an entirely different person's hand. Now her hair is medium length again. I'm confused. Up until this point, I was hesitant to call this story drawn by AI because what if someone was out there putting blood, sweat, and tears into this manhwa and someone made a YouTube video saying how this manhwa is computer generated? That would be very heartbreaking. Until I came across this panel that made me solidify my claim that it is artificial intelligence. I respect the hustle nonetheless, but it's a real shame to call this a webcomic when there's so many other artists out there who take years and years and years, even reaching the 20 chapters that they drew for their manhwa all by their hand. And I wouldn't really criticize this that much for my second point. This manhwa is not free. You have to pay for it. I don't think it's that fair. I mean, come on. Their eyes are merging together and his hand is distorted. Michael's hair is short here, but longer here. Her hair is wavy here and it's straight here. I realized that as this webcomic progressed, that I could tell that whoever was making the art from AI was starting to become lazy with their polishing. In the beginning, I was still skeptical, but I wasn't like, that's bad. But as it went on, not even that far into the webcomic, it started to look like they just brushed over the mistakes. And I'll ask this question again, where is Caroline Evans? So I read up until chapter 6 and then I stopped because I was not going to pay for this. I realized this webcomic was obviously made for an older generation who cannot tell that this is AI. The plot itself was enough to tell me that this was intended for an older person to read. So I know what happened with the Caroline Evans thing. So I'm guessing they wrote the synopsis for the story before they started the story, and they decided to change the name of the main character later on. So originally the name was supposed to be Caroline Evans, but then it changed to Sophia Parker, and they just didn't remember to change the name in the description. That's just my guess. It's up for interpretation. If you want to believe that Caroline Evans is somewhere out there, by all means. The next story.
Did you know that whenever you French fries on ketchup, taste ketchup fries you? This is because ketchup and taste French fries on ketchup is reference to taste French fries on you taste.
This story is called The Night King Who Returned with a God. This was released in 2023, and I believe this manhwa has 79 chapters in the time of this recording. The synopsis goes as follows. I returned to Earth after hunting demons in the other world for 300 years, but I did not return alone. Like I said, this particular manhwa was reviewed by another YouTuber. Manga Barista made a more extensive video explaining why he personally doesn't like this manhwa. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to jot down his points, and I'm going to expand on it and why I agree or disagree. But before we get to that, I want to explain what happens in the first chapter of this manhwa. The main character, Leon, wakes up as a newborn in the lap of his mother when he immediately figures out that he is reincarnated. He says, I wake up to a beautiful lady looking down at me. That's how I know I'm reincarnated. Then with a bit of exposition, we find out that his family comes from nobles and that they are pretty popular in the kingdom they live in due to their status. TLDR, Leon, the main character, is basically reincarnated as a duke. We are fast forwarded to 8 years in the future, wherein he is now a toddler given his first sword to become a fantasy knight. So a skilled knight by the name of Sir Gothic was dispatched from the palace in order to train him. Then we jump to Leon being 14 years of age, still training under his Sir Gothic. So we watch him through his training arc in the land of Dragonia, the entire first section of this manhwa. Leon's first objective was to become a skilled swordsman under Sir Gothic. Eventually, he becomes a skilled knight who ends up massacring 700,000 orcs, which included women, children with barely any scratches and a bright smile on his face. By the middle of the first chapter of the story, he becomes the Grand Duke of Dragonia and the king of the Lionheart Kingdom. The story also has a problem of making the main character so overpowered that they essentially do not need to become more powerful. We barely see any mental anguish. There is no issue with the main character being overpowered. If a main character needs to be overpowered, then that means they needed to have sacrificed something or go through some type of mental overdrive. So Manga Barista's points are, number one,
you see, shortly after they released the first chapter in May of this year, people were quick to point out that the art looks very AI. And I agree. It does.
I hate using AI for anything because it's just such a cheap way to do things. I won't stop reading a story if someone uses AI slightly to polish up some panels here and there. But I don't want it to get to the point where people rely on AI to do webcomics or manhwa. If you're going to put your time and effort into a webcomic, you might as well just draw something and get better at doing it instead of relying on artificial intelligence to clean up your mess. But that's just my opinion. So his second point is,
it's all just one big slideshow of this guy's life, and it's as boring as it seems. At no point do they even try to make you invested in, well, anything at all.
This manhwa in the first chapter was very, very intensive. Within 30 or so panels, we see our main character go from, being reincarnated into a baby to being one of the strongest soldiers who ends up killing almost 1 million orcs. And then it jumps to him in 80 years ruling a kingdom. We barely know anything about the main character other than that he's reincarnated in the lap of a beautiful woman and he's trained under a knight. So his third point is,
here's what makes him a bad protagonist. I don't know about you guys, but when a character says shit like, I killed the women and the children and felt refreshed, it's time to pull the fucking brakes. Like, chill out, Attila. I remember reading this part like, I massacred the orcs including the women and the children. Oh, this guy's a war criminal. I felt so refreshed. Nope, he's just a maniac.
This is also true. The lack of internal conflict for when the main character kills 700,000 orcs makes him very robotic and kind of emotionless and numb, thus making him very unrelatable. The lack of internal conflict hinders any emotional connection to the narrative. Even if they are orcs that he is killing that many would still pose a kind of moral dilemma. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe this is wrong. Stuff like that. But none of that goes through his mind. Giving him some second thought to massacring that many orcs would have made him look a little bit more human instead of just like evil, and could have been relatable to the audience. where he uses humans as human shields instead of his comrades makes him look out of touch. If a character has no moral compass and has no struggle getting what he wants or she wants, it just makes them look very unrelatable. As a reader myself, I don't really get attached to these types of characters. If a character is relatable and goes through some emotional turmoil and struggle, then that makes the story have more character itself and a little bit more humanity. So from best to least, we have the civil servant life reborn in a new world, the Night King who returned with a god, and Sham Tycoon being last. And like I said, I don't want to just come on here and trash a bunch of manhwa that people put effort into -1. Of course, I'm not sitting here and saying these are trash, these suck. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. I enjoy reading manhwa. I like criticizing things that I like as well, and I give everything a chance no matter what. So if you enjoy making art or if you enjoy making manhwa, then keep doing it. So what did I learn from making this video? I learned that I cannot be easily fooled by AI. Manhwa has its good and manhwa has its bad, and someone out there enjoys making manhwa even if the plot isn't that immersive. Anyone could get better at doing what they love to do with time, with effort, and with passion. Even if I criticize these particular manhwas, I would never tell someone to stop doing what they love to do. Do what you love to do and keep doing it. So yeah. That's it. Where is Caroline Evans? If you've made it this far, thank you for sticking around. If you want to support me, please subscribe so I can make more videos like this. I want you to tell me what your favorite manhwas are. Thank you so much for watching this video, and let me know what else you guys want me to make videos about. Bye bye.